I spent 24 hours baking desserts for my son's anniversary party only to hear him joke, "We'll just give it all to the neighbor's dog." I silently loaded every cake and walked away. Hours later, what happened shocked everyone. Before we continue, first let me thank you for watching Granny's Voice. Please subscribe and tell us where you're watching from in the comments. We might give you a shout out in our next video. Today's special shout out goes to Veronica from UK. Thank you for being part of our family. Now, let me tell you everything. The sugar crystals sparkled under my kitchen lights like tiny diamonds I'd never afford. 4 o'clock in the morning and I was already 5 hours into making desserts for Tommy's anniversary celebration. 20 years of marriage to that girl who'd never once thanked me properly. Only Tommy's mom in that voice that made me feel like a stranger in my own home. Sweet smells filled the air from the giant mixer where I'd been whipping cream since 11 p.m. The kitchen felt warm and cozy, like the bakery I'd always dreamed of opening, like wishes I'd put away to help my family instead. My arms hurt from stirring batter all night. But I kept baking. After Henry passed away 3 years ago, making sweets had become my way of talking. The only way I still knew how to show love to people who seemed to forget I was there, except when they wanted something. The party size had grown from 12 to 38 people. Each new person added through quick phone calls from Sandra, my daughter-in-law, as easy as buying milk. Oh, and we asked the Millers too, and Sandra's yoga class and Tommy's work friends. Never. Could you help? Or would that be okay? Just thinking that I would take care of it, that I was some never-ending source of grandma kindness. I'd counted the money myself. $723 for all the ingredients. My pension barely covered it each month. But I'd spent the money anyway. The money I'd been saving for that little condo downtown. The one with the garden where I could plant flowers without asking anyone's permission to live in my own space. The chocolate cake went into the oven at 5:30. Lemon bars followed at 6. By 7 I had 5 different desserts cooling and was making frosting for the cupcakes. My hands knew what to do without thinking after so many years. The same way I'd baked for Henry's office parties, for Tommy's school events, for every special day that mattered to everyone except me. "Good morning, Mom." Tommy walked into the kitchen wearing his weekend clothes, hair messy from sleep. At 39, he still looked like my little boy who used to help me measure flour. Now that memory just made me feel tired. "Tea's ready," I said, not stopping my mixing. He made himself a cup and stood by the window, looking at all the desserts covering every surface. "This looks amazing in here. You've been up since yesterday." "You didn't need to make so much, Mom." Sandra picked up some cookies from the store downtown. I stopped mixing. She what? Just some simple ones. Sugar cookies and stuff like that to help out. To help out. Like everything I'd been baking was just extra. Just something nice but not really needed. The frosting turned lumpy in my bowl. "I've been baking for 38 people, Tommy." I know, and it looks incredible." Sandra just wanted to be sure we had plenty. He drank his tea, not seeing how my heart was breaking. "She worries about having enough food. You know how she gets about parties. How she gets as if Sandra had ever baked anything harder than box cake mix in her life. As if she knew what it meant to plan desserts for 38 people, to time everything perfectly, to spend money you don't really have. I've planned portions, Tommy. I've been baking longer than Sandra's been walking." The words came out harder than I meant, but I couldn't take them back. He looked at me like he'd never heard me disagree with anything before. Mild shock, like he'd forgotten I had thoughts about things. "Okay, Mom. Whatever you want to do. Whatever I want to do." The words that meant he wasn't really listening. Wasn't thinking about what I'd actually said. Just making the conversation go away like Sandra did when she wanted me to be quiet. After he left, I stood alone in the kitchen that would soon be full of people who would eat my desserts and tell Sandra what a great party she threw. The chocolate cake smelled like heaven, filling the room with rich cocoa. I'd been baking since I was 10 years old, since my mama taught me before she got sick, and I'd taken care of everyone ever since. 68 years old, and I was still taking care of everyone but me. The morning flew by with last-minute touches. The strawberry shortcake got its final layer. The apple pie was glazed and perfect. I put on the blue dress Sandra had picked out, something that won't get dirty if you're serving, and pulled my white hair back with the pearl clip Henry had given me for our 25th anniversary. People started coming at 3. I knew about half of them, Tommy's buddies from the gym, Sandra's mom and dad, a few people from church. Others were strangers who would eat my desserts and never learn who made them. I watched from the kitchen as Sandra moved through the living room in her yellow dress, getting compliments on the lovely party, the pretty flowers, the delicious desserts. The chocolate cake is heavenly, I heard someone tell her as I cut more slices. Oh, thank you so much, Sandra said like she'd been the one standing over hot ovens since midnight. We really wanted everything to be perfect. I carried fresh plates to the dining room, setting them next to the untouched store-bought cookies still in their plastic container. Tommy saw me and waved. That happy wave that used to fill my heart with joy. Now it felt like a pat on the head for being useful. The afternoon went on. I cut more cake, washed more dishes, kept everything running while the party happened around me. Every compliment about the desserts went to Sandra. Every thank you went to Tommy. I became invisible in my own kitchen, like a helper who didn't really belong. 5:30 as I was cutting the last of the apple pie, I heard Tommy's voice from the dining room, louder than normal, happy with celebration and drinks. Well, if nobody wants more dessert, we'll just give it all to Buster next door. Laughter filled the air. Easy, friendly laughter from people whose stomachs were full of sweets I'd spent 24 hours making. Sandra's laugh was the loudest. Light and cheerful. We'll give it to Buster. I stood still in the kitchen, knife hanging over the pie that was sliced just right. The words played over and over in my head, hitting me like stones thrown at glass. 24 hours, $723. Cream whipped since 11 p.m. Frosting mixed by hand until my shoulders ached. Give it to the dog. The knife fell onto the counter. My hands moved by themselves, reaching for the cake boxes I'd brought everything in. I didn't look at him. The apple pie went into its box. The cookies followed into their bag, taking the desserts home. What? Why? You said you'd give it to the dog. I don't want to waste Buster's time with my baking. His face turned bright red. Mom, it was just a joke. People were really full. And the pie server went into the last box. Everything I'd made, everything I'd bought, everything I'd put my heart into for 24 hours. All of it going back home where it started. Mom, please don't be silly. It was just silly. I finally looked at him, this son I'd raised and loved and worked so hard for, who thought my hurt feelings were silly. You're right. It was silly of me to think my desserts were worth more than dog food. The kitchen got quiet. Through the doorway I could see people looking our way. The party feeling suddenly uncomfortable. Sandra came up beside Tommy, her yellow dress bright like a warning sign. What's going on? She asked, her voice getting that sharp sound it made when I didn't do what she expected. Nothing, Tommy said quickly. Mom's just I'm leaving. I picked up the last box, the weight of it feeling good and solid. Have fun with the rest of your party. I walked past both of them, past the dining room full of confused faces, past the living room where someone had turned the music louder to cover the awkward silence. Nobody tried to stop me. Nobody came to help me carry things to my car. As I loaded the desserts into my old Toyota, I could see them through the window. Tommy and Sandra talking seriously, probably trying to figure out how to fix the party without the woman who'd made it all possible. My phone rang as I backed out of the driveway. Text from Tommy. Mom, please come back. We need to talk about this. I deleted it without reading it twice and drove toward home, toward the quiet house where I'd eat my own desserts alone, the way I'd been eating everything else for the past 3 years. The phone rang again as I turned onto Oak Street. The screen showed Maria's name, my niece, my brother's daughter, who'd somehow gotten our family's stubborn heart and my own complicated relationship with cooking. I pulled over, hands still shaking from anger and sadness. And Rosa, thank God you picked up. Her voice was panicked and desperate. I'm in huge trouble and I don't know what to do. Maria owned Sweet Dreams Bakery, the kind of place that survived on birthday parties and wedding cakes. At 32, she'd put everything into making it work after her husband left, including borrowing money from me that she'd been slowly paying back $50 every month. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" "My head baker quit this morning. Walked out during the breakfast rush. Took 2 other girls with her. And tonight, oh God, Aunt Rosa, tonight I have the Johnson Golden Anniversary Cake. A 3-tier custom design for 120 people. The party starts in 4 hours at the community center." I could picture her sitting in her empty bakery, pulling at her dark curls the way she'd done as a little girl when she'd spilled something and was afraid to tell anyone. "What about your assistant manager?" "She's home with the flu. Started throwing up right after lunch. I've got one part-time decorator who can barely write names on birthday cakes and a whole family expecting the cake of their dreams in 4 hours." Her voice cracked completely. "I'm going to have to disappoint them. The deposit alone will ruin me and they'll probably sue. 8 years building this bakery and it's over because I can't deliver one cake." I sat in my car, engine still running, surrounded by boxes of desserts that were supposedly only good for dogs. The situation felt almost funny. "What's the cake supposed to look like?" "Aunt Rosa, I can't ask you to. What's it supposed to look like, Maria?" 3 layers, vanilla and chocolate marble, cream cheese frosting, decorated with sugar roses and gold ribbon. Serves 120 people. I thought about what I had. My chocolate cake could be 1 layer. I had enough ingredients at home to make 2 more. The frosting I'd made could be turned into cream cheese style. Sugar roses would take time, but I knew how to make them. "I'm 20 minutes from your bakery," I said. "Start heating your big ovens." "Aunt Rosa, I can't let you do this for Maria." My voice came out stronger than I'd felt in years, carrying all the confidence I'd forgotten I had. "I have enough supplies in my car and at home to make your cake." "Good supplies." "Supplies that have been working since 4 this morning. Supplies that apparently nobody wanted anyway." There was quiet on the other end. "Then what happened?" "Explain later. Right now we have an anniversary to celebrate." I hung up and drove toward downtown, my hand steady on the steering wheel for the first time all day. In my side mirror, I could see the lights from Tommy's house getting smaller. But I didn't feel sad like I usually did. Instead, I felt something I'd almost forgotten how to feel. Important. Sweet Dreams Bakery sat on Main Street, a cheerful pink building with big windows full of cake displays. Maria was waiting outside when I got there, still wearing her flower-covered apron from the morning shift. Her face was white with worry, but her eyes got bright when she saw me unloading boxes from my car. "Holy cow, Aunt Rosa, how much did you bake?" "Too much apparently." I handed her a container of chocolate cake. "This can be your bottom layer if we adjust the recipe." "What do you have for decorating supplies?" "Everything." The old baker left all her tools behind when she stormed out. She followed me inside, carrying boxes carefully. "But I still don't understand what happened later," I said, looking around her bakery with the eye of someone who'd been baking for 58 years. It was smaller than I'd expected but clean and organized, professional. "Right now. Show me your cake pans and let's figure out the design." For the next 4 hours, Maria's bakery became my workspace. I guided her part-time decorator like a teacher showing a favorite student, turning my anniversary disaster into a golden celebration cake. The chocolate layer was trimmed and leveled perfectly. The new vanilla layers were light and fluffy. My cream cheese frosting was smooth as silk. The sugar roses were formed 1 petal at a time with fresh yellow food coloring Maria had bought just for this job. I'd forgotten what it felt like to be needed to have someone waiting for my decisions, depending on my skills. The decorator, a sweet girl named Lucy who was maybe 20 years old, watched me work like I was doing magic. "Where did you learn to make roses like that?" she asked, as I showed her how to twist the petals just right. 40 years of practice, I said, adjusting a tiny leaf. And lots of cakes where beautiful mattered more than I knew at the time. The first layer was done at 6:30, right on schedule. Through the bakery window, I could see people walking to their cars after work, families heading home for dinner, couples holding hands on their way to restaurants. The Johnson family would gather at the community center in an hour, expecting to celebrate 50 years of marriage with a cake that would make everyone smile. That reminded you why celebrations mattered. The cake is absolutely beautiful, Lucy reported after we loaded it carefully into the delivery van. Mrs. Johnson started crying when she saw it. She said it's exactly what she dreamed of. Maria appeared in the bakery doorway, her panic replaced by something I hadn't seen in her face since she was little. "Boy, they love it," she said. "Everything about it." Mr. Johnson specifically asked me to thank whoever made their cake. Mrs. Johnson said it's the most beautiful anniversary cake she's ever seen. I felt tears start in my eyes and blinked them away hard. When was the last time someone had complimented my baking to my face? When had anyone ever asked to thank me by name? "It's just leftover party desserts," I said, but even I knew that wasn't really true. Maria came closer, speaking quietly. "This is professional bakery work, Aunt Rosa. Better than professional, and you did it in 4 hours in a kitchen you'd never used before." Pause. What in the world happened at Tommy's party? I told her while we cleaned up the decorating station. 24 hours of baking. The dismissive comments. The easy assumption that I would handle everything while Sandra got the credit. The final hurt of hearing my work called dog food. Maria's face got angrier with each detail. "That's terrible," she said finally. "I mean, I'm sorry, but it really is. You're one of the best bakers I know, and they treated you like you didn't matter." "I don't matter. Free help that doesn't cost anything." "Well." Her voice was firm. "You're family, and family doesn't treat family that way." The last of the cleanup was finished at 8:15. The anniversary party was loud with celebration, and the compliments kept coming back to the bakery. Mrs. Johnson herself came by to thank me personally. A lovely woman in her 70s with silver curls and kind eyes. "You saved our anniversary," she said, holding my hands in hers. "Maria told me what happened. How you came to help at the last minute. I don't know how to thank you enough. Just knowing it worked out is plenty," I said. But she shook her head firmly. "No, it's much more than that. This cake, it's extraordinary. Where did you go to baking school?" "I didn't. I just learned by watching and doing." She looked at my face carefully, like someone who'd spent a lifetime understanding people. "You should have your own bakery," she said finally. "Someone with your talent shouldn't be hidden in home kitchens." After she left, I helped Maria finish closing, falling into the comfortable rhythm of end-of-day cleanup. It felt right working in her bakery, like something I'd been meant to do my whole life. "I want to pay you," Maria said as we turned off the last light. "Don't be silly. You're family. So are Tommy and Sandra apparently. But they don't seem to mind taking advantage of that." She pulled an envelope from the cash register. "Mrs. Johnson left this for you. Payment for the baker." Inside were 3 crisp $200 bills and a business card. "Eleanor Johnson, party planner, Johnson family. Events. We organize anniversary parties, birthday celebrations, family reunions." The note on the back said, "Please call me. We need someone like you." I stared at the card, at my name written in neat handwriting. Rosa, master baker for Johnson anniversary celebration. Someone had written my name down, remembered my work as worth keeping. "You know what this could mean?" Maria asked, reading over my shoulder. Did know. It meant possibilities. It meant recognition. It meant maybe at 68 years old, I didn't have to spend my remaining years begging for crumbs of appreciation from people who'd forgotten I had value beyond what I could do for them. My phone buzzed. 5 missed calls from Tommy, 3 from Sandra, and a bunch of text messages that started nice and got more angry. The last one from Sandra made my jaw tight. "Your childish tantrum ruined the party. The least you could do is call us back." I turned my phone off and put Eleanor Johnson's card in my purse. "Need a ride home?" Maria asked. "Actually," I said, looking around her bakery one more time. "I think I'll walk. I need to think about things." I didn't call Eleanor Johnson for 4 days. Not because I didn't want to. The business card felt like a winning lottery ticket I was scared to check. But because I needed to figure out what I was choosing between the old Rosa who would have apologized to Tommy and Sandra and gone back to baking for people who didn't appreciate her, or someone new, someone who might actually be valued. Those 4 days were filled with silence from Tommy's house. No calls asking me to babysit Sandra's sister's twins. No requests to make cookies for his work meetings. No casual assumptions that I would take care of whatever they needed taken care of. The quiet should have made me lonely. Instead, it felt like the first real rest I'd had in years. I spent Wednesday afternoon at the grocery store, something I hadn't done just for myself in months. Usually my shopping was practical. Whatever Tommy's family needed, whatever fit my budget after I'd helped with their bills. But walking through the aisles thinking only about what I wanted felt amazing. Rosa. A woman's voice made me turn from the bread section. Carol Martinez, Henry's old co-worker from the post office. I hadn't seen her since Henry's memorial service. Carol, how have you been? Better than you look, honey. She studied my face with the honesty of someone who'd known me for 15 years. What's going on? I almost said nothing. The automatic answer I'd learned to give. Instead, I told her about Saturday evening, about the baking, the dismissal, the walkout, and surprisingly about Maria's bakery and Eleanor Johnson's card. Carol listened without interrupting, nodding when she should. Her face getting more upset as I described Tommy's careless cruelty. That boy needs to grow up, she said finally. Henry would be so angry. Henry's not here to be angry. No, but you are. And you deserve better than they're giving you. She grabbed my arm gently. Call that woman right now. Carol, I don't know if I should what? Bake. Honey, I ate your desserts at every office party for 12 years. You made those boring workplace celebrations something people actually got excited about. Her grip got tighter. What are you really afraid of? I stared at the fancy bread. Beautiful and expensive and something I never bought for myself. What was I really afraid of? Failing or succeeding and having to face how much of my life I'd wasted being small and invisible. I'm 68 years old. So Julia Child was 49 when she wrote her first cookbook. You've got plenty of time to build something meaningful. That afternoon I called Eleanor Johnson. Rosa, I was so cake designs, budget sheets that made my head dizzy. Johnson Family Events organizes 15 major celebrations every year. Anniversary parties, milestone birthdays, family reunions. We've been using the same bakery for 6 years. And honestly, they've gotten lazy, expensive, unreliable, and their cakes are boring. I looked at the photos. Fancy reception halls, tables covered with white cloths and flowers, people in their best clothes celebrating life's big moments. The kind of parties I'd only seen in magazines. What are you thinking? I'm thinking we start small. Test run. We have a 75th birthday party next Saturday. 50 people, intimate setting. If you can handle that, we'll talk about a longer partnership. My hands started sweating. 50 people who probably expected perfection, who knew what good cakes should taste like and would remember if something went wrong. I don't have business licenses or insurance or details we can figure out. Maria's agreed to let you use Sweet Dreams Kitchen and permits for the first few jobs. As for everything else, she pushed a check across the table. Think of this as a starting bonus. Get whatever supplies you need. The check was for $3,000. More money than I'd seen since Henry died. Eleanor, I can't take this. You can and you should. Because Saturday night wasn't luck. That was skill, experience, and talent finally getting the chance it deserves. I drove home feeling dizzy. The check tucked safely in my purse next to Eleanor's card. $3,000. Real job. Recognition. Respect. At 68 years old, I was being offered the chance to be someone more than Tommy's helpful mother. The front door was propped open when I got home, which meant someone had let themselves in. I found Tommy and Sandra in my kitchen, sitting at Henry's old table like they owned the place, which in some ways they did. The house was still in both our names, something we'd set up after Henry passed for financial reasons and never changed. There you are, Sandra said, her voice tight with controlled frustration. We've been trying to reach you. My phone was off for 4 days. Tommy stood up and I could see the worry lines around his eyes. But let him worry for once. Mom, we really need to talk. I'm here. You're talking. Sandra gave him a sharp look, then smiled at me with the fake expression she used when she wanted something. We've been thinking about Saturday night, and we think there might have been some confusion. Confusion. Like I'd misheard his joke about the dog. Misunderstood the laughter that came after. Tommy didn't mean anything bad by that comment, she continued. You know how he is after a few beers. He feels awful about the whole thing. I looked at my son, waiting for him to speak his own words. He shifted nervously, hands in his pockets like a guilty teenager. Sorry, Mom. I said it wrong. The desserts were incredible. Everyone thought so. I was just being stupid. Being stupid. About 24 hours of my work, $723 of my money. The kind of effort that would have gotten respect if anyone else had done it. Understand. So we were thinking. Sandra jumped back in quickly. Maybe we could have Sunday brunch this week. Make up for the confusion. I could ask my parents to come, make it a real family gathering. Course. Sunday brunch that I would prepare in my kitchen with my groceries while Sandra played hostess and got all the compliments. The same old pattern starting over like Saturday night never happened. I'm busy Sunday. Busy. Tommy's eyes went wide. Doing what? For a second I thought about lying. Making up something small and harmless, a doctor's appointment or library visit. But Eleanor's check was still fresh in my purse, and I was tired of making myself smaller to fit their expectations. Working. Sandra laughed, the sound sharp and mean. Mom, you're retired. Not anymore. I told them about Maria's bakery, about the anniversary cake, about Eleanor Johnson's offer. With each detail, their faces changed from confusion to disbelief to something that looked too much like fear. You can't be serious, Sandra said finally. Mom, you're 68 years old. You can't start a baking business at 68. Why not? Because she waved her hands around, looking for words. 'Cause it's ridiculous. 'Cause you don't know anything about real professional baking. 'Cause what if you mess up? What if I mess up? The question that had kept me small for decades, that had made me settle for being helpful instead of important. Then I'll mess up, I said simply. But at least I'll mess up doing something that's mine. Tommy found his voice finally. Mom, this is crazy. You don't need to work. We look after you. Look after me. By letting me live in a house that wasn't really mine, bake desserts that weren't appreciated, exist on the edges of their lives like a useful piece of furniture. Do you? Yes. Look after me. Course we do. You live here free. We include you in everything. You include me in the work. That's different. Sandra's fake smile slipped, showing the annoyance she'd been hiding. So this is about Saturday night. You're having a fit because your feelings got hurt. A fit, like my decades of service, my hurt, my decision to finally value myself was nothing more than an old woman's tantrum. No, I said quietly. This is about knowing my worth. Something you've never bothered to learn. The silence stretched between us, heavy with years of things left unsaid. Tommy looked like he wanted to argue, but Sandra grabbed his elbow. Fine, she said, standing up with sharp, angry movements. If you want to embarrass yourself chasing some silly dream, that's your choice. But don't come crying to us when it all falls apart. I won't, I said. I don't expect anything from you anymore. They left without saying goodbye, Sandra's high heels clicking angrily across my kitchen floor. Through the window, I watched them get into Tommy's car, their heads close together in serious conversation, probably planning their next move, figuring out how to deal with their suddenly independent mother. I pulled Eleanor's check from my purse and looked at it again. $3,000 and a chance to matter. It wasn't revenge exactly. It was something better. It was freedom. Saturday morning I went to the bank and cashed the check. Then I went shopping for the kind of clothes that said professional baker instead of helpful grandma. By Sunday, when I should have been making brunch for Tommy's family, I was instead planning recipes for Eleanor Johnson's birthday celebration. My future spread across the kitchen counter in neat, organized notes. The Johnson family birthday party was scheduled for Saturday evening at the Eagles Lodge, a place I'd driven past many times but never entered, thinking it was for people more important than me. Now I was walking through its polished entrance wearing a new apron that fit properly, carrying professional baking tools that belonged to me. Order with confidence. The lodge kitchen was impressive, bigger than anything I'd baked in, with equipment that probably cost more than my car. But as I started my prep work, instinct took over. Cream the butter, measure the flour, check the oven settings, the familiar dance of serious baking, something I'd never experienced but somehow understood perfectly. 3 hours before the party, Eleanor introduced me to the kitchen helpers I'd be directing. Professional cooks who'd been doing this longer than I'd been alive. I expected doubt, maybe resentment at having to work under a 68-year-old woman they'd never met. Instead, I got respectful attention and cooperation. Chef Rosa, the assistant cook, said, looking at my ingredient list, "Should we start preparing the raspberry filling?" Chef Rosa. The title made me feel proud in a way I tried to hide. "Yes, please, and let's get the cake layers started. We'll assemble everything during the final hour." The next 3 hours went by in a whirlwind of organized activity. Orders were called out, tasks were completed, and I found myself giving directions with confidence I didn't know I had. The kitchen worked like a team with me as the captain I'd never had the chance to be. Cake layers, golden brown, table 8, I called, spreading buttercream with a care Henry used to use on his stamp collection. The raspberry filling gleamed like jewels. Through the kitchen window I could see the dining room. Soft lighting, round tables with flowers, people in nice clothes laughing and talking. These people had choices. They chose to be here. Chose to eat cake I'd made. Chose to celebrate someone they loved. The difference from Tommy's anniversary party was huge. There I'd been. Invisible help. Here I was the reason the celebration would be sweet. "Chef," one of the servers came to the kitchen window. "The birthday lady at the main table would like to meet you." My heart dropped. In my small experience with fancy events, when customers wanted to meet the baker, it usually meant something was wrong. But Eleanor appeared beside me, smiling widely. "Rosa, there's someone special I want you to meet." The woman at the main table was about 75, elegant with white hair and the kind of calm confidence that comes with a life well lived. She stood when we approached, reaching out her hand. "Dorothy Chen," she said. "I had to compliment the baker personally. This cake is extraordinary. Better than anything I've had at fancy restaurants." "Thank you so much," I managed to say. "I'm planning my grandson's wedding next spring for 150 guests. Plated dessert service. Would you be available?" 150 guests. My hands wanted to shake and I held them steady behind my back. "That's quite a big order. Eleanor tells me you're new at this, but I've been to enough celebrations to know real skill when I taste it." He smiled kindly. "We'd provide full kitchen support, total creative freedom, and payment that shows how much we value good work." After she left, Eleanor and I sat in the quiet dining room while the staff cleaned up around us. The evening had been perfect. Every slice eaten, every compliment real, every moment exactly what I'd hoped professional baking could feel like. So Eleanor asked, "How do you feel about Dorothy's wedding offer?" Scared, I admitted honestly. 150 people is bigger than anything I've ever tried. But not bigger than you can handle. Tonight proved that. She poured coffee from a pot. The servers had left behind. "Rosa, I've been planning events for 12 years. I've worked with famous bakers, culinary school graduates, people with awards and certificates. What you did tonight, the way you led that kitchen, the quality of that cake, the natural leadership, it's special. The coffee was good, the kind Henry and I used to buy for special occasions." I drank it slowly, tasting richness I'd forgotten existed. I keep thinking someone will figure out I don't really know what I'm doing. Nobody really knows starting out. The difference is whether you let fear stop you. Eleanor leaned closer. "Have an offer. Johnson Family Events needs a head baker for all our celebrations. Steady income, skill development, eventually your own workspace. Are you interested?" My phone buzzed. Text from Tommy. "Mom, we really need to talk. Sandra's having complications with her pregnancy." I stared at the message, understanding exactly what it meant. Sandra's having problems, so they needed me back. Free nursing care, free cooking, free help, disguised as family emergency. The old Rosa would have been driving to their house right now. Apologies ready. Boundaries forgotten. I turned the phone face down. Yes, I told Eleanor. I'm definitely interested. The drive home took me past Tommy's house. The lights were all on. Sandra's mom's car in the driveway next to theirs. They were probably planning how to use the pregnancy scare to bring me back. How to make me feel guilty for choosing my own life over their needs. Instead of stopping, I drove to the senior living community I'd been looking at before Henry died. The one with the garden spaces. The one I'd never been able to afford on just my pension. But I wasn't living on just pension anymore. The office was closed, but I walked the peaceful grounds anyway, imagining my own place. A kitchen where I could test recipes without anyone calling them dog treats. A living room where I could relax without feeling like I was in the way. A life that was completely mine. Saturday morning brought a phone call from Sandra. Rosa, thank God you answered. Her voice was shaky with worry. We have scary news. Congratulations on the baby, I said. Tommy texted about complications. We're terrified and we thought right away we're going to need help. With the pregnancy being difficult and Tommy's job being so demanding and me being on bed rest, I'm sure you'll manage fine. Quiet on the phone. We were hoping you'd want to be involved. Really help us through this tough time. Really help us through this. Code for provide free nursing care while they took credit for handling their own crisis. I'll help however any grandmother would. Doctor visits if you need rides, emergency babysitting when I'm free, moral support when available. When you're available, the worry cracked her voice. Rosa, what's happening to you? This is your grandchild we're talking about. And it's your baby, your responsibility. But we thought after what happened at the party, we thought you'd want to make things right. We thought you'd want to be needed. Needed, not wanted, not valued, not appreciated. Needed like a tool that had a job to do. I'm needed, I said, just not by you. I hung up before she could guilt me further and immediately called the senior community. The apartment was still available. I could move in next month. That afternoon, I went to the Eagles Lodge to collect my payment from the previous night. The amount made me smile. More than I'd made in 4 months of pension checks. Real payment for real work. Money that I catered the Johnson birthday party last night. His mouth fell open. Around us, other families were arriving for weekend events. Birthdays, anniversaries, celebrations about people living their best lives. The world I'd just joined. You baked here at the Eagles Lodge. 50 guests, 3-layer vanilla cake with raspberry filling, individual fruit tarts. I watched his face process this information. Saw the moment he realized what it meant. It went really well. Mom, I had no idea you could. Sandra said you hung up this morning and we thought you thought wrong. I opened my car door. I need to go. Meeting another client this afternoon. Another client. His voice cracked like it had when he was 15 and trying to sound grown up. Wait. Can we please talk? About what? About everything. About the party. About Sandra's pregnancy. About whatever's going on with you. I looked at my son, 39 years old, standing in the parking lot of a place where I just worked as a professional baker, finally understanding that something big had changed in the world he'd taken for granted. We can talk, I said. But not today. Today I have business to handle. 8 months later, I stood in my own bakery kitchen. Not the one I'd shared with Henry's memory and Tommy's expectations, but a professional space in the renovated building that housed Rosa's sweet creations, my baking business. The morning light came through big windows, lighting up stainless steel equipment and tools that had my name on the purchase receipts. The Johnson wedding had led to 5 more events. Those had led to corporate orders, birthday celebrations, and a booking list that stretched into next year. Eleanor Johnson had been right about my abilities. But even she'd been amazed by how fast word spread through the community of people who knew good desserts made by someone who understood that baking was about more than sugar and flour. It was about creating sweetness worth remembering. Chef Rosa, Lucy, my assistant manager, the same sweet girl who'd worked at Maria's bakery that panicked night, appeared in the doorway. The Martinez anniversary prep is finished. and I've ordered ingredients for the Johnson Foundation dinner Thursday. My team, people who worked with me, who looked to me for guidance, who called me chef with real respect. The change still surprised me sometimes, like seeing a different person in mirrors who happened to be living my dreams. Thank you. What time is the cake tasting for the Williams birthday celebration? 1 o'clock. Mrs. Williams specifically asked for you to handle it personally. Mrs. Williams, whose husband's 80th birthday party would host 180 guests in the ballroom where I'd once imagined other people's happiness. Now I was creating those sweet moments, making memories for families who valued what I offered. The situation felt almost magical. For 40 years of marriage I'd baked. For Henry's work events, Tommy's school functions, countless family gatherings where my desserts were background sweetness to other people's conversations. Now strangers paid good money for the same skills my family had dismissed. My phone buzzed. Text from Carol. Saw the feature in the Sunday paper. So proud of what you've built. The Sunday paper feature. Local grandmother turns baking passion into thriving business. A photo of me in my chef coat, standing in my bakery, looking like someone who'd always belonged there. The writer had told the story of my unusual journey to business success, the way I'd built a reputation through quality and word of mouth. What she hadn't mentioned was the cost of that success. The family dinners I no longer catered. The grandchild I saw occasionally instead of raising. The son who still called but with the careful voice of someone trying to understand a relationship he'd lost control of. Another text appeared. This one from Tommy. Can we please talk? 8 months of similar messages. Not demands. Or manipulation. He'd learned those didn't work anymore. But careful requests that I'd mostly ignored. Today felt different somehow. The newspaper article had made my transformation official, public, impossible to dismiss as a phase or grandma's rebellion. Called him back. Mom, his voice was full of surprise, like he'd stopped expecting me to respond. Thank you for calling back. What do you need, Tommy? Can I see you at your bakery? Bakery. Not the little hobby or baking thing he'd used before. Growth, I supposed. It's not just a bakery. It's a full catering operation. Your catering operation. Can I come see what you've built? An hour later, Tommy stood in my kitchen like someone visiting a foreign country. He wore his work clothes from the office, looking overdressed and uncomfortable among the professional equipment and busy energy of afternoon prep. This is really impressive, he said, watching Lucy expertly roll dough for evening orders. I never imagined it would be this professional. What did you imagine? I don't know. Maybe like selling cookies to neighbors or something small like that. He looked helplessly at the walk-in freezer, the commercial ovens, the organizational systems that kept 4 different events running smoothly. Not this. This is a real business with employees and equipment and profit statements. Something that couldn't be dismissed or ignored or reduced to a grandma's cute hobby. The newspaper article, he said finally, said you're booked through next spring. Through next summer, actually. We just got the mayor's daughter's wedding. 600 guests. 600 guests. The number sat between us like proof of everything he'd failed to see. About what I could accomplish. Mom, I owe you a huge apology. You owe me many apologies. You're absolutely right. His voice got shaky. I've been thinking about that day, about what I said, about how we treated you. Not just that day. 4 years and years. And I'm so sorry. Sorry. The word I'd waited 8 months to hear. But it felt smaller than I'd expected. Apologies were simple. Real change was much harder. Thank you for saying that. Sandra's been struggling since the baby came. Struggling to accept that you're not just available anymore. Available. Even his apologies assumed I should have been constantly accessible, permanently useful. I'm available for what I choose to be available for. Understand. I see that now. He looked around the kitchen again, taking in the evidence of my choice. The baby's walking now. We were hoping we'd love you to be part of her life. I planned to be, as her grandmother. But what does that really mean? I thought about the question carefully. What did it mean to be a grandmother instead of free childcare? What did it mean to love someone while keeping boundaries? Means birthday parties and holidays. It means babysitting sometimes when I'm available and willing. It means being someone she can talk to when she's older and needs advice or comfort. Pause. Means being family without being service. Tommy nodded slowly, understanding the difference. And us. What does that mean for our relationship? That depends entirely on you. What do you mean? Do you want a relationship with me as a person? Or do you want someone to handle the things you don't want to deal with? Question hung in the air between commercial mixers and cooling racks, in the space where I'd learned to value my own dreams. Tommy looked at the floor and I could see him struggling with an answer that might require him to change instead of expecting me to bend. I want a relationship with you, he said finally. I want to know who you are when you're not taking care of everybody else's needs. Then that's exactly what we'll build together. He stayed for another hour watching me work, asking real questions about the business, the clients, the life I'd built from the ashes of his careless words. When he left, he hugged me tight. Not the quick embrace of someone checking off an obligation, but the desperate hold of someone who'd almost lost something precious forever. That evening, I sat in my new apartment, the one with the garden view, the one where every piece of furniture was chosen by me, reviewing orders for the coming week. The walls displayed framed thank you notes from clients, photos from events I'd catered, my business license. With Rosa's sweet creations written in official letters. The phone rang. Sandra's name on the screen. Rosa. Her voice was different. Quieter, less sure than the commanding tone she'd used when she assumed I had no choice but to obey. Hello, Sandra. I saw the newspaper story. Congratulations on everything you've accomplished. Thank you very much. I wanted to apologize for how we treated you, for taking you for granted, for not appreciating. She stopped, searching for words. For not appreciating you as a person. Not appreciating me as a person. The most honest thing she'd ever said about our relationship. Thank you. I really mean that. The baby's starting to talk now. Would you like to visit sometime? An olive branch offered carefully. Not a demand or an assumption, but a genuine request. I'd really like that. Maybe you could come for dinner. I could try to cook something nice. Sandra offering to cook for me. The universe had definitely shifted. I'd prefer if you came here, I said, to my apartment. I'll do the cooking. Then I'd really like that too. After I hung up, I poured a glass of the good wine I could now afford and stood at my window, watching the garden where neighbors walked their dogs and children played on swings their grandparents pushed with joy. Somewhere in the city, families were finishing dinners they'd cooked themselves or ordered from restaurants where bakers like me had spent hours perfecting every bite. I thought about the woman who'd stood in Tommy's kitchen 8 months ago, invisible in her blue dress, watching other people get credit for her hard work. She felt like someone I'd once known but outgrown, like shoes that no longer fit who I'd become. My phone rang with a new client call. A tech company wanting to discuss their annual celebration dinner. 800 guests, unlimited budget, complete creative control. I smiled and started planning my response. Outside, the sun was setting over a city full of people who would taste my desserts, remember my cakes, know my name. The terrible joke had become the first ingredient in something completely new, something that belonged entirely, undeniably to me. The old Rosa would have wondered if she deserved this success, this recognition, this life where her value was measured in more than service to others. But the woman I'd become, the one who ran professional kitchens and signed corporate contracts and chose her own relationships, she knew the truth. I deserved everything I'd built and everything still waiting to be created. The revenge had been perfect. Not cruelty but creativity. Not destruction but dignity. Not taking anything away from them but finally claiming everything for myself. And it had been absolutely sweet. Now tell me, what would you have done if you were in my position? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out the video on your screen right now. I'm sure it will amaze you.